Hey everyone, Howie and Kaylin from Pure Mind here again with another transmission, a little masterclass for you. And today's topic is one that Kaylin and I discuss a lot amongst ourselves, but also with clients. And it's this idea of alignment and making choices from alignment, but it can get really confusing. What is alignment? Is it something that we feel before we take action? And we have kind of a unique way of looking at it as we've been, working together and been in our own process. So we wanted to share maybe a new perspective that could be helpful and maybe open up your definition of alignment so that it doesn't become this thing that's super pass fail or something that's creating neuroses and like you're trying to do perfect, something that's more relaxed and more practical in your life. Is there anything you wanted to add, Kaylin, before we jump in?
Yeah, I will say that the concept of alignment has really become a buzzword, I think, especially in the spiritual space, in the personal development space. And we're really hoping today to kind of debunk some of the myths around it. This idea that it's something that always has to feel good, this thing that you're waiting for clarity before you do. And hopefully, by the end of this deep dive training today, you'll have a deeper insight into really how to start taking those steps in your life to really find energetic alignment. So, as always, if you have any questions at all about anything we shared, we would love an opportunity to support you deeper. So please make sure to leave your comments, leave your questions under this video, and we would be happy to dive deeper in with you. But let's get into it.
Yeah, sounds good. So, one of the big things with alignment is sometimes we think we have to have perfect clarity or we need to feel perfectly in order to take action. So, we start assigning alignment to this sensation in the body of like, I better be running around with my hair on fire or so passionate every moment of doing something, and that's alignment. And one of the key points is that alignment is really the starting point. It's not the destination, and it's certainly not the full process. So I think the way a lot of us think of the word alignment or define it is more of like vision, right? It's like, or awareness, like I'm seeing the map. And if I see it clearly, then I'm aligned. But alignment, like as a process, instead of just this like absolute thing, is more iterative, where as you take action, you get feedback from life and you reiterate, and that is a process of alignment. And it kind of reminds me of the idea of enlightenment as well. People think like enlightenment is just some state you reach, but enlightenment is actually the process of holding more light in your system. It's not like a destination.
Yeah, I will say that for me, personally, going through this journey and helping others, is that alignment is kind of sold as this idea or this thing, right? Is that's always going to feel good and it's always going to be easy. And not that as you start deepening in that pathway, it does feel that way. But in the beginning, you have to understand that there's also a deconditioning process. There's a deprogramming, right? So if I've operated this way for 34 years out of alignment with my truth, with my essence, with my spirit, me beginning to take those steps to really embody energetic alignment in my life are going to feel really foreign to me. They're not going to be the easiest thing. They're not going to always feel good, right? And you have to understand that it's okay to take the steps that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, that feel a little bit fearful, right? But it's kind of like how we shared, by taking the action, you start this feedback loop with the universe. And it's not so much about how do I feel before I do the thing. It's about how you feel after. Does it feed me life? Does it give me energy? Does it make me excited? Do I feel more spacious, right? Maybe you're someone who is in the process of starting their business, and getting on a video like this terrifies you, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I cannot speak in front of people. But you do your first class and maybe 10 people come and you're a little bit scared before you hit record. And then you're on there and you finish the call and you feel so energized and so full of life and so lit up. That's how you can tell that you're taking a step into alignment, into expanding into your truth. So I think we have to really understand that alignment isn't correlated or connected to the thing that always feels the best in the moment, but really more about who you become on the other side of it and what kind of it breathes life into. And I think when you can start playing with alignment in that way, it makes it so much easier to come up against those hard truths about who you believe yourself to be or who you've been up until this point, and really allow your body to get into the felt sense of experience something different, right? That's how we find alignment, right? It's a felt experience. It doesn't live in the head where awareness does, right? Maybe that's where you get the idea to take alignment, but actual true alignment is an embodied experience that can only happen when you take action in your life.
Exactly. And I know for myself, like I kind of bought into the new age culture of like everything being in the mind or everything being about tapping into an elevated emotion within the body. And like that was alignment. And if something matched that, then that's the path. But I think it's a combination of a lot of different factors. Like I think you do have to think practically about things. Like, is this something I can actually take action on right now? Or is this something that maybe I'm tapping into that's further down the line? So how can I practically take action? So I think thinking carefully about it is important. Like we don't have to disregard the mind, but we also don't have to obey it as absolute truth either. And then like Kaylin's mentioning with the body and the way it feels, it's like you might feel excited about an idea 1 second and then feel afraid the next. It's like, what's true? So I think it's more about the honesty. Does this feel like something that feels like me, like authentic? So with Kaylin's example of getting on a video or hosting a group, it's like, yeah, that feels like me. I might be kind of scared, but it's like kind of connected to my deeper essence or my truth. So I think it's important to consider your values and, like Kaylin mentioned, like that person that you want to become when you're making these decisions, combined with the practicality. And then the biggest part that I think a lot of us miss is the participation. So it's like, cool, I might have an idea about this group that I'm starting. I'm going to take action on it, but I'm going to stay open in my system to get feedback from that action I'm taking. So I might find, hey, some of the things that I thought would happen did happen, and those went really well and felt good in my system. Some of the things didn't feel really clean. They felt a little distorted. So it's just feedback. It's not personal. But what adjustments and iterations do I want to make to kind of clean up that part that felt a little funky about the way I was doing it? And so now you're like walking a path of alignment versus it just being something that you're trying to be prophetic about. Like, oh, I made the hypothesis to guarantee the conclusion. It's like, no, I make my best guess. I get feedback and then I reiterate. And just as one quick, like real world example that Kaylin and I have done, when we started our group sessions, we had an idea that we wanted to get a group together. We agreed that that was important for this container. But we started it more from like a group coaching, more talking, more analytical. And what we found from the response was, okay, there's parts we like about it, but we feel like we're not really kind of getting deep with people. We're not really getting into that felt experience. So what could we adjust to maybe move closer to that? So we refined the process and we've moved into deeper and deeper alignment. And like part of it for me, that was a really cool gift is I got to see Kaylin in her power. And like that was like, whoa, I didn't even know, that these things, could come about from just being willing to participate. So oftentimes you'll have an idea, like a little seedling that gets things started, but there can be so much more that's revealed if you stay open and not insistent that your initial guess become the destiny of it, because you don't really know. It's more of a starting point.
I love that. And I think too, we can also look at alignment as the path of refinement, right? I think that so much of the suffering really becomes attached to this certain expectation or attachment on how we think it has to be or how it's going to show up, right? So if we were only so hyper focused that it has to be group coaching, it has to look this way, then we would have missed this bigger thing that was unfolding behind the scenes that we didn't even have conscious language to yet. But through participation and through going through the motion and through getting feedback from our own systems and our client systems, we were able to really see what was really trying to be birthed to us and through us. So sometimes alignment isn't, directly connected to this end destination, but it's like, hey, with the information that you have right now, with the vision, with the polling, with the desire that you have in your heart, what's that 1% aligned action that you can take towards that? And then you do that, and then you get another little feedback, and then it has a moment of refinement. It's like, okay, well, now that we have even more information, what are you going to do with that? Right? And like, that's life. The pathway home back to ourselves isn't this quick fix or even integration sometimes. I think is sold as this thing like you're going to have this one perspective, one thing, and your life's going to be changed. And I can just tell you from a very personal experience, there are some concepts, teachings, and things that I learned probably 5 years ago, if not more. And I had a moment the other day where I was like, wow, I'm really finally just landing that in my nervous system. I could conceptually know it and understand it, and I could teach it, but to have it actually be ingrained in my body and my system, it takes time, it takes refinement, it takes you being willing to participate with life. And I think that when so many of us could look at the healing journey or even just our self discovery from this lens, there's so much more that's like a mystery that's hidden that we could actually tap into and experience. But when we're so rigid on how things need to be or how we, think it needs to look like in order to experience blank, it's like we miss all the back doors, shortcuts, surprises that essentially the universe is trying to give us, right? So then what do we really need? We need a willingness to be open, we need a willingness to surrender, and we need a willingness to show up and participate despite the circumstance. And I think when you can have those few kind of frameworks that you constantly come back to and revisit, there's so much less pressure and suffering that you put on yourself because it's not this place of this is right, this is wrong, I did this good, I did this bad. It's all just information and feedback into how to get into deeper alignment with your essence and spirit. And I think for me, that's been the greatest gift too of some of this work is that I realized that there's not like this pass fail for everything in my life. It's simply just deeper information about myself, my gifts, my path, and how I can really begin creating a life that truly feels good to my system. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think that, I mean, a little image came up when you were sharing, and it was like if you're walking through dense fog with a flashlight and you could only see a few feet in front of yourself, it's like you would have to keep walking to see the next few feet.
Yes.
You can't just like get the light to flash further. So you have to walk. Yeah, it illuminates the next step. It illuminates that alignment, that pull is for your next step. And then you get feedback. And then, okay, what's my next step? And when you do it that way, it becomes less about, did I guess my life right, like some psychic, or did I participate? Did I take the honest next step? And sometimes, and usually, if you take the next step, it feels revitalizing. But sometimes, you get slapped in the face too. Can you stay open enough to take the feedback and to redirect based on the information? And the more you see it that way, the more you're actually exploring life as an adventurer or a scientist, and it's not so personal. Like you're getting to discover, hey, I made my best guess, and this was the feedback that I got back. Sometimes it validates it, sometimes it doesn't. So what? Like I'm not doing this to get it right. I'm doing this because it's honest, and it's going to reveal what's next for me. And a big part of this, and going back to the example of us starting the group, a lot of the stuff we couldn't see a year ago, 6 months ago. Like we weren't far enough down the trail yet. So you couldn't, you didn't have the information available to you. You weren't conscious of it yet. But by continuing to move, eventually you start to reach those checkpoints and it becomes a part of your awareness, and you're actually not disillusioned, but you're in engagement with reality and getting real feedback from it. So it's like, wow, this went way deeper than I ever could have imagined at the starting point. So we almost, in a way, limit ourselves a lot when we insist that the journey go the way our mind thinks it should, because we have limited information at
Yeah.
that step. Just like at this step, I'm going to have limited information on what is going to unfold next. That's the process of becoming more conscious, is that information being revealed. So rather than turning that into a problem, it's like, good. There's more that I'm going to get to discover by continuing to walk the path. Why do I have to guess it right? Who cares? Can I be honest enough with myself to take the next step?
Yeah.
And we'll take missteps, right? Sometimes we'll be like, wow, that really was out of alignment for me. Like that did not come from a place that was true. Who cares? You'll get feedback and you'll reassess and you'll take a different step. So it removes the pressure, it brings in curiosity, it makes it way more fun. And like Kaylin mentioned, now you're opening yourself up to surprises, to miracles, because you're not trying to squeeze life into a very limited perspective.
Yeah, the last thing I want to pull in that I feel like is important for someone to hear surrounding this idea is that, our conscious mind can really only create what it's seen before, right? So when we are going back to driving in the fog, right? The beauty in only seeing a couple feet ahead is that you can only make a decision from a couple feet ahead, right? And maybe beyond the fog, there's this beautiful, utopia waiting for you, but you're like, oh, I'm trying to get to my 9 to 5. Let me just get through this fog to get through my 9 to 5 because that's what I know exists. And Spirit's like, no, if you can just keep meeting me at the breadcrumbs, at the drip, at the next 100 feet that you can see, I have utopia waiting for you that your soul is desiring to create, but your conscious mind's never seen before. Something unique that can only happen through you, right? So, this really is the beauty of stepping into alignment and really being spirit led. It's not so much, and too, I want to say it's not that you no longer have visions or dreams or desires, but it's not being hyper attached to that thing having to be the thing that creates the felt sense in the body of freedom, of success, of aliveness, of whatever it is that you're wanting to experience. Because so many times you think it's going to happen through this one channel or one vehicle, and really the universe infinite, right? So there's actually all these other channels and all these other pathways that are trying to make their way into you, but are you open enough to receive them? Are you receptive enough, right? And that really happens through just taking that 1% aligned action. And as you do that, a certain aspect of you gets revealed. You get a piece of refinement. You meet this new relationship that could change your life, right? So I think there's a power in, yes, having a greater vision of this is who I desire to be. These are the things that I value and are important to me, but also being so open into the ways that you can receive them in your life.
Exactly, because even like you mentioned with visioning or imagining that future version of yourself, like that's helpful because that helps set your orientation. It's like, who do I want to become? What's important to me? Great. That's the direction you're going to walk. But just because you chose to walk that direction doesn't mean that there's not things you need to learn and ways you need to grow and a version of you that you have to become. And not all of it's pleasant, rainbows and unicorns. It's like sometimes you have to do things that are uncomfortable to become that version. But even that version that we're seeing from one perspective, like, oh, I'm doing these things, it's like you don't really know from that perspective if that's your destiny
Yeah.
because you're operating on limited information. To give you a practical example, I've always been an entrepreneur, but when I was in my 20s doing it, it's like I was chasing success and money and things like that because that's what I desired from that person. The one that was trying to find safety in an identity in the future. It's like, oh, once I get to this point, then I can finally open up to life. Like that was the orientation. As I've gone through the process of deeper embodiment and learning how to stay open in my current circumstances, those preferences changed a lot because I started to feel safe in my own life. So, from the perspective of finding safety in the future instead of the present moment, it seemed like getting those things is what I wanted. But once I actually realized, oh, it was just underlying safety and openness that my system wanted, those preferences kind of changed. It's not that like I don't care about those things anymore. It's just I don't need life to accommodate my preferences immediately. Like it's more fun to go through a surprising journey, to get to discover each breadcrumb. Like each one becomes more delicious and interesting. And then I feel like you really get to have that existential connection of like, I'm actually living my life in real time. I'm not just chasing the ending of the movie. And I think a lot of us, why we get burnt out and when we feel like we're waiting on the sidelines for everything to go our way before we start participating, we get a lot of time of feeling stuck and feeling in that uncomfortable energy of like, I've been gifted this life, but I'm not doing anything with it. So I really like this particular point that life is constantly inviting you into alignment because I think it is a good blend between the practical side of things and more of the aerial side of things. Because when we're working with ketamine, I know a lot of us have had those experiences where we get to see things from the bird's eye view. We get to see how the dots connected in our life. And that helps us understand that, as confusing as it may have seemed or disorienting, like there was a pattern in this. And maybe you don't love the circumstances you're in currently. That's okay. You can still see the pattern that's led you to where you are. And I think that's incredibly helpful. But if we lose the practicality of like what's an honest step I can take right now with the hand I've been dealt, we start living in this idealized version of reality to find safety there instead of keeping our feet on the ground and actually engaging with life. So it's okay, first of all, if you find yourself doing that. We all do. It's part of the phase that we get to go through. But as you can combine the vision with practicality, I think that's the closest thing to alignment because you're considering both sides and that really finds the balance point.
Yeah, I love that. And I will say, I love the concept of alignment is always, or life's always inviting you into alignment. And I think too that could really support people who feel like they're in a challenging season or that they're facing obstacle or loss after loss. Because I know for myself, I had a season where I felt like no matter what I was doing, the doors just kept closing and things were not going my way. And it's so easy to look at that and be like, oh, well, I must not be in alignment then because, this doesn't, yeah, this doesn't feel good. And, I'm not in the winning season. But the truth of the matter is, like, the universe doesn't have language that says good, bad, right, wrong. Like, everything just is. We are the ones who place meaning on it, right? And sometimes deepening into alignment means going through a season that's going to expand your capacity to be self source safety, to really learn that safety isn't contingent on success, on money, on relationship status, whatever it is. Maybe alignment's teaching you that, hey, you're going to go through this really challenging thing with a client to show that you can deepen and hold space in leadership, right? So we have to understand that, and we've talked about this so many times, but life is always serving you the medicine that you need. And it's our willingness to meet it and look at, okay, well, what is here? What is being revealed? Where is my responsibility in this? Where is my sovereignty in this? That really can actually help you kind of move through those things with more grace, maybe than looking at it as a problem. But life is always inviting us into alignment. And we always have a choice of who we're going to be and meet it, right? So there's where you find the energetic alignment. It's through who you're choosing to be, despite the season, despite the circumstance. That's how you find alignment. Alignment doesn't mean everything's fluffy, rainbows, and unicorns 24/7. It means, can I stay true to who I am and meet this thing? That's alignment.
Exactly. And like to your point, like about the tough seasons, like let's just say for instance, you had a point in your life where you were like, what I really want is to have an open heart and to go through life trusting life, etc. And it's like, okay, great. Well, life just has ups and downs. Like that's just the rhythm of nature. It's just the rhythm of the way things work. So looking back at this, and this is just from my own experience, but like the really challenging seasons that I've gone through, especially like the latest challenging season, which lasted years, was about learning to stay open. It's like you want to stay open, then stay open here. Stay open in the part that you don't want. Stay open, when your dreams aren't showing up the way you thought they would. And I resisted that for a long time because I kept thinking I was doing it wrong. But in hindsight, to see where I am now, and like when challenges come up, I'm a lot more open to them. I'm like, wow, that's the liberation that I actually wanted. I didn't know it at the time. Like, I didn't know that this was necessarily the price you had to pay. But wow, I can stay open in adversity. I can stay open in challenging circumstances. Like they don't rock my foundation anymore because I learned just through repetition of me not getting what I wanted that eventually, oh, I can stay relaxed in this. Like I'm not actually threatened in this. And sometimes we just need a lot of proof of concept of that idea. You get backed into a lot of corners and you find that there's always a way out. Might not be the most ideal way, but that, life is still supportive, even when it feels doom and gloom. So, wow, now I've built a baseline of being more open than closed. And if you have that foundation when life's not going the way you want it to go, it's a lot easier to enjoy the moments when they are aligned with your preference. So I think each season does cultivate something within you. But when we are assigning it feels good to it being aligned, we're missing at least half of the experience. What if a tough season has nothing to do with alignment in terms of the way it feels in your body? It's like you're not going to feel good in a tough season, but can you stay open? So I think it's really fascinating. And for us at this point, it's really the lived experience is the only thing you can look to for pattern recognition. So what I invite all of you listening to do is just look back at your life and look at, hey, even if my life's been super hard, I'm still here. And those challenging things, how much did they actually teach me? Probably a lot about yourself. And like Caitlin mentioned, where's my responsibility in this? So that we're not just, throwing in the towel like life's just going to do what it's going to do. I got to participate. I got to show up. It doesn't guarantee me anything, but I show up because I care, not because of a guarantee.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but I want to pull in one more example about this, and it's just coming to mind.
Please.
Let's say for so many people, right, we have swamp ass boundaries. I will say most of my clients, when they come in, they have terrible boundaries. They're martyrs, they're people pleasers, right? So that aspect of themselves is not in alignment with the part of them who values their essence, who values their truth, their time, right, their resources, whatever it looks like. So stepping into alignment may look like in your romantic relationships, with your families, with your kids, putting in those energetic boundaries that I'm no longer going to be the people pleaser. I'm no longer going to be the overgiver. So that could be a season that you feel like is really challenging as an obstacle, but within that, you're becoming resourced enough to really have strong energetic boundaries and to really protect your truth. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we're trying to get at here, where alignment sometimes doesn't look like the thing that you would automatically choose to get that hit of dopamine, but it's going to be the things that you put into place, that you put some energetic scaffolding in your life that's really going to allow you to show up more fully in who you really are, to experience more flow and more ease. But in that beginning phase of it, it can feel like a little like a little friction, or it can feel like a little contraction. But really, it's like with anything that we know, there's a contraction and there's an expansion, right? So if you're in this season of alignment where you're like, this feels really hard, it feels really foreign, trust that if you're staying true to yourself and you continue to honor it, that on the other side of it, you do get flow and you do get ease. And I think that's just important for someone to know.
For sure. And I think tying this back into the ketamine work with alignment, where our identity lies is super important in terms of like not getting hijacked by emotions or thoughts. So with ketamine, when we're able to dissociate or tap into that bird's eye view or into observer witness consciousness, oh, I have a body, I have a mind, I have emotions, I have thoughts, but they're not the totality of who I am. That observer oftentimes is going to be more connected to your values.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at alignment, a lot of the times a good question to ask is, does this nurture my values? Because we have to consider our values as kind of the foundation for what we decide to do. Like, does this nurture the most important things to me or no? If the answer is no, that's kind of a cue. It's most likely not going to be your best hypothesis in terms of moving towards alignment, if that answer is no. But then there's the practical side. It might be aligned with the values, but is this something I could practically take action on right now? With the hand I'm dealt, do I have the resources to move in that direction? And if I do, what's a simple step I can take? So aligned with my values. I think that's the essence of alignment, and a lot of us don't even ask those questions, right? Like, does this feel supportive of my body, of my nervous system, of my mind, of my family, of my contribution, of my creativity, right? Like, yes, like this feels right. What can I practically do about it? Is there anything right now? Cool. Now we're taking something that's aligned and actually participating with it. We can't just think about the step. Like, we got to take the step so life can give us feedback on that action. But again, tapping into the witness consciousness is going to be more of a clear signal with your values versus like the ups and downs of emotions, or our minds running past programs, or feeling positive thoughts, the negative thoughts about the same exact thing. If we try to make choices from there, we just get a lot of distorted signal. So get into the values, get into the practicality, and then from the observer consciousness, my body's allowed to feel, my mind's allowed to think, but the alignment comes from the values and the practicality. If you do those two things, you're going to make a pretty good guess. It doesn't mean life's going to hand you what you want, on a golden platter. But you're going to be making a guess where you really considered things and you were thoughtful and you were actually aligned. And then you can trust the feedback. The feedback I'm getting is going to be more clean, even if it's a redirect. Like, oh, I thought I was going to go this way, and it's like, no, maybe look this way. Fine, good. I did the best I could on my end to make the best guess I could, and this is what life responded with. So this is the alignment as a process. So I know this is a lot, but again, to keep it simple, if you can really get into the value side of it, you're going to follow that North Star a little bit easier.
I'll say I want to add too that something I see trip a lot of people up when they decide, okay, I want to start living a life of alignment, is they pick like the biggest thing in their life to change and try to make this huge change overnight. And not to say that sometimes that doesn't work, but if we're really honoring the identity piece, if we're really honoring the nervous system, something that's too big and too far fetched from who we've been isn't going to stick, right? So you have to realize too that it's so much better to do this in like a 1% aligned action, in a small step, a small change that you can make every day, because then you're actually going to give your current identity, your body, your nervous system some evidence that, oh, this new way of being is actually safe. It's actually nourishing. It actually feels good to me. And then that kind of begins to get a snowball effect, a momentum, and build on itself. But if you're like, I've never worked out a day in my life and I'm going to start working out 7 days a week and I'm not going to eat carbs, do you think that is going to stick? You know what I mean? It's not. But if you're like, hey, you know what? I've never really cared about my health, or I've never really worked out, but every day I'm going to decide that I'm going to move my body and I'm going to start focusing on eating more nutritious food and no longer eating fast food. What shift do you think would be easier for your body and nervous system to get some buy-in with? Right? So you want to make sure too that you're doing this in the small steps, like we said, like 100 feet driving in the fog, right? Following that next breadcrumb, following that next drip, right? Because if you're trying to skip 10 steps ahead, it's a lot harder to take that step than if you just took the one that was right in front of you. So I think it's really important to know that alignment isn't a fast game, right? It's not a quick fix. It's something that you're going to have to revisit through every season of your life, every time you desire to change, every time you have awareness of a pattern, a behavior, something in your life that no longer feels good. It's going to take that refinement. It's going to take getting into that feedback and dance with the universe to really figure out, okay, well, if this isn't what I'm no longer choosing, then what is the thing that is going to feel more in alignment, right? So also, one, I think it's just important to give yourself the space and the grace to figure it out. It's okay if you don't nail it on the first time. It's okay if you don't change overnight, but can you be devoted to who you're becoming? And I think if you're devoted to who you're becoming, you're open, you're receptive, you're willing to participate, you're unattached, then alignment gets to be kind of fun. It gets to be more about discovering yourself versus trying to fix yourself. And I think that's where so much of like the hesitation or feeling like we're failing comes from, right? Like, you are not a problem that needs to be fixed. Anyone listening to this, it applies to all of you. You are not a problem that needs to be fixed. You are a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. And if you look at life that way, it's going to be a lot more fun.
I 100% agree with that. I know we have to sign off in a minute here, but just one thing to add to Kaylin's 1% idea. I also think it's important to give yourself enough time. So if it's like, I want to make a change, and using the working out example, so like let's say you haven't worked out in years, it's like saying you're going to go every day for an hour and do something crazy is probably too much. It's not believable to your system. But it's like, could I commit over the next month to go to the gym 3 days a week and just get my butt to the gym? Even if I turn right around and leave, I'm just going to show up to the gym, right? It's like, okay, I could do that. I could drive there and I could get out of the car and I could walk in and walk out. Like, I could do that. Right? There's not a lot of pressure on it, but it's like over a month, I'm going to do that. Like, that's my commitment to myself. I'm going to do this step. You'll probably end up finding that you go to the gym and you're like, oh, like I actually feel kind of inspired to do something. And you end up doing more than you thought because you didn't have all this extra pressure. And then maybe you have a really crappy
Hmm.
day where you're just feeling terrible. And it's like, all I have to do is drive to the gym. And like, it's simple and you just do that for the day. But then over a month, you can like evaluate, like, how did that go? Is that something I want to include in my life moving forward? Is there anything I would change up about it? But not being so hasty with your iterations to where it's like, oh, this didn't work, and like now I'm on to the next thing. I think you do need some repetition over time to get like enough of a spectrum of feedback to where you can really evaluate what worked, what didn't work, and what do I want to do next. You might decide you hate going to the gym and that you prefer to go walk outside. Great, who cares? It's still feedback. So it's choosing something that's simple enough that you can believe in and stay consistent with. That creates a momentum, and then that's really where it becomes fun. So the 1%, love that because it's not overtaxing on the system, and then giving it enough time so you get enough real feedback. But that's all I wanted to add. Is there anything you want to share before we sign off?
Just tying in your last point that just because something's simple doesn't mean that it's not profound. And I think that we're in an age where it's really easy to have 5 million tabs open and our energy scattered in multiple directions. And you have to realize that if your energy is scattered in all these ideas and things you want to align and projects and whatever it is, it's really hard to get momentum on anything. So, find the thing that feels like it's the most connected to your values, that it's going to nourish your spirit, that it's going to nourish your life in the best way, and become laser focused on that. And just notice what happens in 2 weeks, what happens in a month when I stay really devoted to integrating this 1% thing. And we would love to hear about it in the comments.
Exactly. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. And Kaylin, thank you for your time. And we will see you all in the next one.